One compelling case study in our analysis of American government and American history is the evolution of the women's rights movement and women in history. At this time, we will highlight many key events of the women's rights movement, as well as a variety of other notable women who have helped shape the history books for their contributions to politics, education, exploration, and social justice. We begin our journey here in Seneca Falls, New York, where the women's rights movement arguably began in 1848. The Seneca Falls Convention brought together men and women alike to rally support for a variety of women's issues. One of the key documents emerging out of the Seneca Falls Convention was the Declaration of Sentiments. Modeled directly after the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Sentiments clearly defined how women had been oppressed and what rights they were entitled to. One of the figureheads of this era was Susan B. Anthony, who committed her life to the cause of women's suffrage. In 1919, the 19th Amendment passed, stating that the rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. This was a pivotal turning point in the role of the American woman in society. From this point forward, we will examine the accomplishments and significance of the American woman decade by decade. The flappers of the 1920s serve as a great starting point, as women were embracing unprecedented style, flair, and disdain for the status quo during this time period. As the 1920s gave way to the 1930s, Amelia Earhart began spreading her wings in a way of her own. Earhart became the first female to ever fly across the Atlantic Ocean and received a number of other medals and awards for her contributions to aviation. A trailblazer herself, Mary McLeod Bethune dedicated her life to bettering the lives of the African American community. She also served on the Black Cabinet, an office that reported directly to President Franklin D. Roosevelt regarding the issues of the black community. As the United States found itself entering into World War II at the end of Roosevelt's time in office, Rosie the Riveter emerged as a powerful icon for women's involvement in the war efforts. Many women began working in factories, producing ammunition and machinery necessary for winning the war. As America transitioned from World War II in the 1940s into the Cold War in the 1950s, American propaganda attempted to portray the closeness of the family and the luxuries of suburbia as an advantage of democracy. Throughout this decade, the American woman began to take on an identity of housewife and mother above anything else. Some would argue that this image is more repressive than liberating. Another focal point of this era was the Civil Rights Movement. Rosa Parks became one of the most well-known American icons when she refused to surrender her seat to a white man on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. In the 1960s, President John F. Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act, which prohibited discrimination on account of sex in the payment of wages by employers. In the 1970s, Title IX emerged, stating that no person shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Among a variety of other things, Title IX brought women's athletics opportunities to the fore. Also occurring during the 1970s, Roe v. Wade serves as one of the most well-known Supreme Court cases in history. The Supreme Court ruled in a 7-2 decision that a woman's right to an abortion during pregnancy fell within the right to privacy guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. This gave women total control and decision-making over the first trimester. As the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, Sally Ride made national and international news when she became the first woman in space. But she wouldn't be the only woman to be a first of her kind in the 1980s. Sandra Day O'Connor became the first woman to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States when she was appointed to the position by President Ronald Reagan. It could be argued that she served as a pioneer for women in politics, as women have become significantly more involved in recent decades. For example, Condoleezza Rice became the first female African-American Secretary of State when she served under President Bush. Nancy Pelosi is the only woman to have ever served as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and Hillary Clinton remains the only former First Lady to ever run for public office. Many speculate that she has potential to become the first female President of the United States. In conclusion, the role of the American woman has shifted dynamically over the course of the last 200 years. Many icons and astounding women of the 20th century have created new opportunities for women in the 21st century. It will undoubtedly be interesting to observe how the role of the American woman changes in the years and decades to come.